Reporting from Arkham Asylum, this is Gotham Rogues. In this episode, we take a look at the Batman the Animated Series episode, Vendetta. Written by Michael Reeves and directed by Frank Poor, Vendetta is the debut episode of Killer Croc on Batman the Animated Series. In the episode, a mysterious character frames Detective Harvey Bullock for the kidnappings of two small-time criminals, Spider Conway and Joey the Snail. Batman is led to believe that Bullock used to be on the payroll of mobster Rupert Thorne, something which Conway and Joey might have known about and could potentially have testified to in a court of law. However, Batman eventually learns the truth, that the true culprit is Killer Croc, a petty crook who was sold out by Conway and Joey and then arrested by Bullock. Croc wanted revenge on all three of them, that's why he kidnapped the two hoodlums, planning to kill them, and why he framed Harvey for the whole affair. But even knowing this, how is the Dark Knight supposed to stop Croc when the deformed beast is the most physically powerful foe he's ever faced? This episode is a pretty straightforward action detective story. There's not really anything too deep or all that compelling going on. Croc himself is portrayed as a fairly simple villain. He wants revenge on the ones who sent him to jail. Sure, those are realistic reasons for a criminal wanting vengeance, I suppose, but they just aren't all that interesting. In the comics, Croc is usually depicted as a sad, misunderstood freak, hounded by society. All he wants is to be left alone, but someone's always gotta pull him back, whether it be Batman or another villain. I talked about this a lot in my top 5 best Killer Croc stories video, which also happens to be one of my very first videos. I'll leave a link in the description in case some of you have missed it. Anyway, in this episode, Croc is more or less portrayed as an evil criminal, with motivations that aren't very sympathetic. Sure, they threw him in the pen and let him rot for a few years, but Croc had probably done things to deserve that. We never really get to know that much about his past. All the information we're given is that he used to work as a carnival sideshow, then started a somewhat lucrative wrestling career, only to fall into a life of petty crime once he moved to Gotham City. It's not explained why Croc became a criminal, and we're kinda left to assume that he was always bent towards the dark side. At least that's what I get out of it. Croc himself does hint a bit that he's had a tough life due to his hideous appearance, but none of that is really clarified or fleshed out. I think the creators could have done a better job at adapting Killer Croc for this series and made him more interesting and tragic, like the character is in the comics. However, as a mysterious, creepy villain, he does work pretty well. Maybe that's what they were going for, to make Croc scary and establish him as a big threat for Batman instead of doing a sympathetic rogue. If that's so, then they succeeded pretty well. For most of the episode, he's actually concealed for the audience by clothes or by appearing off camera. I don't remember my first viewing of Vendetta, but I can imagine kids seeing this for the first time being wowed by this mysterious guy and his monstrous reveal. One thing about Croc in the animated series is that he was always portrayed as a complete moron in the villain ensemble episodes, like Almost Got Him and Trial. But here, and in his other big episodes, Croc seems a lot smarter. Sure, he's no criminal mastermind like the Penguin or the Riddler, but he's able to almost pull off this elaborate frame-up of Harvey Bullock. I can't see the Almost Got Him Croc do that. He's also more articulated and talks quite a lot throughout the episode. In other words, a far cry from "I threw a rock at him." I prefer this Croc to the imbecile Croc, but I gotta admit that version was fun in those ensemble episodes. I also want to mention that the character is referred to as Killer Croc Morgan here. I find that kinda weird. Where did they get Morgan from? As far as I can remember, the name Waylon Jones was there from the beginning back in Croc's first arc by Gerry Conway in the early 80s. So I don't get why they needed to give him another name. But that's a minor gripe, and they only mention that name once in the episode. So Vendetta may not feature a great Killer Croc, but at least he's a fairly cool antagonist for the Batman. The best thing about the episode is actually its dark, hard-boiled film noir style and mood. A lot of episodes had that, but this one does it perfectly and really looks and feels like some old 40s or 50s crime movie. Harvey Bullock was always great on the show, so it's nice that he has such a central role. He was actually way more interesting than Gordon in the animated series. Jim never really got to shine on the show, but Harvey had several episodes that spotlighted him. This is probably the second best one, after A Bullet for Bullock. He's a rough around the edges kind of cop, one that doesn't mind bending the rules, but he's not corrupt. He's a lot like Batman in a way, yet the Dark Knight doesn't trust or like him, and is all too eager to accuse him of the kidnappings. At the same time, Bullock dislikes Batman and considers him a freak who meddles in police business. Kind of an interesting relationship these two had on the show, way more interesting than Batman and Gordon's. Aaron Kincaid, mostly known as a voice actor, does a pretty good job as Croc. He manages to make a voice that doesn't really sound like an ordinary human, but that's also not too monstrous. It is a bit cartoony sounding, and could have been a tad scarier, since creepy is what they were kind of going for with Croc, but it works quite well. In conclusion, Vendetta is a pretty stellar episode. It's got a good detective story going on, and a very atmospheric noir feel to it. But Croc could have been done better. He's not bad, but he could have been done better. So there you have it. That's the Batman the Animated Series episode, Vendetta. Remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.